Hey friends, it's Steven with Leviathan Snakes, and for this week's video, we want to do something kind of similar to the ball python breeding starter guides that we've done in the past. So in the past, we've kind of like set a budget, and we said if we were just getting into ball pythons with $1,000, with $2,500, things like that, how would we go about doing it? But instead, for this week, what we want to do is how would we go about if for some reason we lost everything, every single piece of equipment, every single animal, all of that, and we had to start from scratch right now. So we would still have all of the experience that we would have, and we could still have like the social media presence and skill set that we already have, but we just lost all of the equipment, all of the animals. How would we restart? So we hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, please like, comment, subscribe, and before I forget, the budget for this is $50,000. So let's jump in. So there are lots of different things that would go into this, and there's lots of different things that we would need if we had to start over from scratch. And I think that there are kind of different categories that we can look at. There's like stuff for marketing, there's stuff for infrastructure, and there's the animals themselves. And I personally think that the animals themselves are the coolest part of like what we would buy if we had to start over right now from scratch and we had a budget of $50,000. So I'm gonna save those for the end. So if you guys don't wanna hear about like what kind of cameras we'd get, what kind of equipment we'd buy, all of that stuff, go ahead and skip to the end. I'll try to put like the timestamp down in the description below. Starting off with marketing stuff. So I personally believe that marketing your reptile business is super critical for any chance at success in the reptile hobby. So we would probably do a lot of the same marketing stuff that we are doing right now. We would still work on Instagram, we'd still work on YouTube, and in order to do that, I personally think that we would need a really nice camera. So the one that we are currently using is a Canon R7, and I absolutely love it. So we don't use the kit lens, like the lens that comes with the camera. Instead, we had bought a 35mm Canon lens. It's a prime lens, and it has a really wide aperture, so it's a fast, and it creates just beautiful pictures, beautiful reels, beautiful video. And that's what we use for our YouTube videos now. We used to use a Canon M50, but we got the Canon R7, and I absolutely love it, so I would definitely buy it again. So I'd probably buy the Canon R7 and the 35mm prime lens as the first things that I get, and this would be used to help market our business. So that'd be about $2,000 of our total budget. In addition to the camera, which is kind of capturing video so that way we can make YouTube videos or post stuff on Instagram and have it be as high of quality as we possibly can, we would need lights and we'd need audio equipment. So for a while, we were not using a audio interface with our camera for our YouTube videos, but recently we had bought one, and I think it's amazing. I'm surprised that it took me so long to actually get an audio interface because it helps out the audio so much. I think it sounds great. But in addition to the audio interface, we'd get some ring lights, we'd get some like backlights, all of these different things, and we just kind of total budget about $1,000 for the audio and lighting equipment. So right now we're at $3,000 total of our $50,000. So moving into infrastructure part of this video. So I really like the ARS racks. Like we've had DIY and we do have Freedom Breeder for a rodent rack, but I really like the price and the build quality of the ARS racks. So when it comes to our infrastructure, like enclosures for the animals, things like that, I definitely go with ARS again. And I'd probably buy a 70-30 for the initial adult breeders that we'd either be like buying or growing up. And I would buy a ARS 1065 as our hatchling rack. So together that'd be about $5,000. So combined with our marketing, camera, all of that kind of stuff budget, we're looking at about $8,000 for camera, marketing, and racks. In addition to the racks, we need an incubator, and we do actually use the very first incubator that we ever made. It's a DIY. Honestly, works perfect, but I personally really like the hotbox incubators. So we had purchased a 48-inch hotbox incubator, and I really like it, but I do think that if we were starting over, I would just go ahead and go all the way up to the 60-inch, so that way we don't outgrow it at any point. We're not close to outgrowing our 48-inch, but that way we can have as much life as possible in one incubator without having to make multiple purchases. So I think that that one's about $1,500-ish. So with everything going up, I'm pretty sure we're at 9,000. I'm not 100% sure. 9,500, something like that. One last piece of equipment that I had forgotten about was an ultrasound. So we would definitely get an ultrasound, and I think that they go for about $1,000, $1,300-ish. I don't remember exactly what we had gotten ours for, but we definitely get an ultrasound, and we would include that into our equipment cost because it is so helpful and so beneficial when it comes to actually breeding your animals, especially if you're trying to run one male to multiple different females. It lets you know when you should pair that male. Before we get to the animals, I do want to say is that there is a space requirement needed to breed animals, and this is besides just like the enclosures itself, but where are you going to put the enclosures? So because of that, I think that if we were restarting again, we would make a deliberate effort to kind of cut down the total number of animals that we have, at least at first, and kind of focus on much, much higher end animals. And because of this, we don't necessarily need to build an entire building like we have right here in order to house all of them. Instead, we would probably keep it in like our bedroom or an extra room or something like that, because we would still have the space for it, because we'd only have one 70-30 and one 10-65 and then an incubator as well. That's something that we could completely do inside our home. So we don't necessarily need to come out of pocket to buy a facility or something like this. Going into the animals, this is the part that I personally am most excited about, and I think that this is why most people would want to watch this video. It's like, what would we buy if we had 50 grand and we were going to be spending it all to restart our reptile business? So I love the Sunset Project, and that would not change. If we got out, if we lost everything, I would 100% buy back into the Sunset Project. It is my favorite project. It has been so good to us, and I think that there is so much more room in the project in the future. So for the very first animal of what's available on Morph Market right now, I personally think, and this is going to seem a little bit weird with a budget of $50,000, I think that the best deal for a male in the Sunset Project right now is a Clown 100% Het Sunset male that is currently being listed by Canova. And the reason why I think that this animal is the best deal compared to all of the other males that are on Morph Market is that with a Clown 100% Het Sunset, you're pretty far into the Sunset Clown project. Like, you're not necessarily making combos, but you are not working it from a double het to a double het. In short of a Sunset Clown, it's the best odds that you are going to get. Now, somebody might say that you might want to buy a Sunset Het Clown, but realistically, the prices of a Sunset Het Clown versus a Clown Het Sunset are like 3 times of expensive, and realistically, I don't think that it helps that much on the odds of hitting a Sunset Clown. You would just get more sunsets instead of more clowns when you're pairing a Sunset Het Clown to try to make Sunset Clowns in the future. So for that reason, I think that the Clown Het Sunset male for $3,500 is the male that we would buy to kind of start off a brand new Leviathan Snakes operation if we had to restart over from now. Continuing to go on the Sunset Clown kind of theme for this, I would want to get 2 other animals from Canova, and that would be a Spot Nose Yellow Belly Mojave Double Het Sunset Clown female for $6,500, and I would want to get a Leopard Spot Nose Double Het Sunset Clown female from Canova as well for $5,500. And I think that these animals are amazing. So paired to that Clown Het Sunset, when it comes time for them to all get up to size, you'd have a 1 in 8 shot to hit a Sunset Clown, and with all of those other genes into it, you'd be working you'd be right at the leading edge of the project. And realistically, for the price that they are compared to what Sunset Clowns go for, I think that this is a steal, this is a no-brainer. I am honestly surprised that these animals are still on Morph Market. So that part, those 3 animals, really kind of complete the initial foundation for the Sunset Clown project that I would want to jump into if we were starting over. In addition to that, I actually think that there's one other, maybe 2 other projects that we are not in right now that if we were starting over, I personally would want to go after. And the first one is Hypo. So I know that this sounds crazy, but with all of the stuff that came out with Desert Ghost recently, I don't want to like talk bad on the project. I am not super bullish on Desert Desert Ghost anymore, even though we currently are invested into it. And if we were restarting, I don't think that I would invest money into the Desert Ghost project personally. Instead, I still want that kind of like enhancing type gene, and I think that you can get that from Hypo. I think you can get that from Lace. And personally, when it comes to the Sunset project, I personally believe that the Hypo Sunset looks way better than the Desert Ghost Sunset. So because Sunset is kind of like the bedrock of our project of how we would restart, Hypo is the better option for us in this scenario. So because Sunset, specifically Sunset Clown, would be the centerpiece of our projects, I would want to not just get a Hypo, I'd want to get a Hypo Clown. And I think that the best deal that I've seen on Morph Market right now for Hypo Clowns is an Orange Dream Inchy Russo Hypo Clown female from Ken Masick Reptiles, and it's currently being priced for $3,500. Again, I think that that is a steal. I think that Hypo Clown is an awesome project. I think a lot of people are already in it, but a lot of people are going to continue to get in it as we really push for those triple and quad recessives. So this ideally would be used to help make Hypo Sunset Clowns sometimes in the future, and it has a lot of other incomplete dominant genes that could get added into the project. So for the fourth animal in this, we would want to get an Orange Dream Inchy Russo Hypo Clown female. The last animal that we'd want to pick up to kind of restart if we had to, if we lost everything, would be a $13,500 female that is a Hypo Zebra. And I think that this is a beautiful animal on their own, but I also think that it will work amazing with Sunset. So the Sunset Zebra hasn't been hit yet, and because Hypo works so well in Sunset and it works so well in Zebra, I think that it's just going to be very complementary to each other. Now, with this, we wouldn't necessarily be going directly for the Hypo Sunset Zebra. Instead, we would be going for the Hypo Sunset Clown Zebra. And I think that it would be wild because it takes so long to hit a triple recessive, it takes so long to hit a quad recessive. I would rather, if we were restarting, immediately try to go towards some long end project like that, so that way we aren't wasting 10 years just building up the pieces to even potentially work on that quad recessive project. So because of this, we would end up having 5 total animals. We'd have that Clown Het Sunset male, we would have a Spot Nose Yellow Belly Mojave Double Het Sunset Clown female, we would have a Leopard Spot Nose Double Het Sunset Clown female, we would have an Orange Dream Inchy Russo Hypo Clown female, and we would have a Hypo Zebra female. So all of these animals would be forming the bedrock for what we would want to do in the future. And realistically, the first 2 seasons that we were breeding them, we'd want to hold back a lot of stuff. We'd be wanting to hold back Sunset Clown stuff, we'd be wanting to hold back triple and quad het stuff. It would be really fun, but it would take a long point for us to build up enough animals that it really became viable as like a full-time business. Not that we're at a full-time business right now, but I think in this situation we could keep our feeding costs low because we'd only be feeding 5 snakes for the first year to 2 years as we're growing them all up. And then as we're producing babies, we would be able to produce babies that nobody else could produce because nobody else would have those animals that we are working on, because these are really kind of leading edge animals to each of the different projects that they are in. So altogether, we would end up spending, actually there is one more miscellaneous expense that I do want to budget for, and in this situation, I would want to plan on going to Daytona and at least one of the Tinley shows every year. So for the first year, I would give us a budget of about $2,000, and this would be food, this would be hotels, this would be any travel that would be needed to get to the shows. And the reason why is I personally think that those national level shows are so important for networking and getting your name out there, and honestly marketing. And if you are not going to those national level shows and you're not able to put a face to a logo or a handle that you might see on Instagram or on YouTube or something like that, it can be really hard as you're trying to move into the highest end, the leading edge type of projects, because most of the people who are willing to buy $5, $10, $15, $20,000 snakes, which is what we'd want to be focusing on if we were going to restructure, they are the people who are going to those types of shows. So even if you're not necessarily going as a vendor, being able to go and network and meet people is so important, and that in-person time is invaluable. If we were restarting, I would definitely budget to go to maybe 2 to 3 of those major national shows a year. all of those expenses, everything that we've talked about that I kind of lost track as we were talking throughout this video, ends up adding up to $45,050, which still gives us a little bit less than $5,000 of breathing room. But personally, I think that having that $5,000 of breathing room as you're restarting is super, super important, because even if you aren't using it for animals, it gives you that buffer in case an emergency would come up or in case something would happen that might force you to sell something that you had been raising up for a year or been really, really excited about. So by having that buffer and having that kind of like emergency funds established for the business is super, super important. So all told, if we had to restart right now, we would keep it much, much smaller in the amount of animals initially. We wouldn't go wild like we did when we first got into breeding ball pythons. We would keep it at 5 animals, we'd grow those animals up, we'd get some holdbacks, and we'd kind of expand that way. And we'd be focusing pretty much exclusively on the highest end projects that we are passionate about. And I think that that passion is really important to talk about. We talk about the Sunset Project a lot because I love it and it's my favorite project, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other projects out there that you could do the same exact type of thing for. And I think that it's most important that you are personally incredibly passionate about the animals that you are working with. So we hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next week.